Greetings, I'm your host, Dr. Wolfula, with a short animated review of a long-lost horror film from the late great George Romero, The Amusement Park. Now, I hadn't even heard of this movie until Shudder picked it up, but the film was shot in 1973 and wasn't actually released until a few years ago, and wasn't readily available until like a few days ago. The Amusement Park was believed to be lost until a print was discovered and restored. Now, you'll often hear about shelved books written by a famous author finally being published after they die, so the author's family can get a bit of extra cash, or you'll hear about a silent film from the 20s being rediscovered and restored, but you don't often hear about unreleased films from the last 50 years finally getting released. So why wasn't The Amusement Park released until just recently? Well, The Amusement Park was not intended to be a full-on horror film for starters. In the wake of Romero's second film, the poorly received There's Always Vanilla in 1971, he needed to continue working, especially since he wasn't receiving royalties for Night of the Living Dead, and 1973 was a busy year for Romero, making Season of the Witch and The Crazies, but lost in the shuffle was The Amusement Park, a film purely made for financial reasons, but Romero still took the opportunity to experiment with his craft. The Amusement Park was not necessarily intended to be a horror or exploitation movie, though. The Amusement Park is a 50-minute PSA funded by a church and a charity organization to illustrate the horrors of elder abuse and ageism.
The older citizens of the world represent a much misused natural resource.
Even though it is a PSA, if it wasn't for the wraparound intro and outro segments like it's some kind of retirement home version of Tales from the Crypt, you'd probably assume the movie was purely an absurdist art house horror film. The PSA was supposed to air on TV, which you can tell because there are multiple fade-outs in the film for commercial breaks, but The Amusement Park was never released because it was deemed to be too shocking in its handling of the material. Turns out when you get the director of Night of the Living Dead to direct your scary PSA, it's gonna be scary. Shocker. Yeah, Ed Wood style, George Romero took the opportunity to make a low-key horror movie on church money, but unlike Ed Wood's Plan 9 from Outer Space, The Amusement Park wasn't released until decades later, and also The Amusement Park is actually a really good movie. The film stars Lincoln Mazel, who you probably know from George Romero's later film, Martin, who acts as both the host giving some vague context, and the unnamed Colonel Sanders-like protagonist of the movie, who encounters a bloodied and traumatized version of himself in a white room.
Don't you care to talk? No.
The beaten version warns the fresh-faced version of himself of the dangers of the outside world, but the cheerful incarnation decides to optimistically check it out himself and enters the titular amusement park.
You won't like it. I'll see for myself if you don't mind.
The amusement park used in the film was Westview Park in Pittsburgh that shut down just a few years after this movie was made. The park acts as a visual metaphor for society, a clever framing device to give the film's loose story a structure and to efficiently illustrate all the messages the film is trying to say. But you can very easily interpret the amusement park as some kind of purgatory, a literal carnival of souls where elders buy tickets to a hell where they are tortured and tormented.
I'd like to get some tickets.
Okay, fine. Cash, that's what I like to see. How much you have to spend?
There are many possible interpretations you can have about what is going on in this film. It's such an abstract tale told in a surreal world. You can come away from it with multiple different meanings to it beyond just the surface-level lessons it aims to teach. It's a film you can certainly watch multiple times, especially since it's only 50 minutes long.
Ah, two young lovers. You want your fortune told.
We want to see what our life is going to be like.
Watching the amusement park feels like a dream that steadily descends into a nightmare. The amusement park very much feels like a precursor to David Lynch's filmmaking in the same way Carnival of Souls does. The film itself is an abstract mystery, a journey into a world seen through funhouse mirrors. The movie is difficult to review, admittedly, because there isn't much of an overarching story. The film is a series of vignettes chronicling the old man's journey inside the theme park. Each vignette is a parable illustrating the difficult experiences that the elderly have to deal with. Lincoln Mazel's character is both witness and recipient to all manners of abuse through the course of the film. As an elderly man alone in this theme park, he's vulnerable and easy to sympathize with, and it's heartbreaking to witness his hopeful and optimistic spirit broken over time. The vignettes thoroughly explore the film's various messages against ageism and elder abuse. The elderly are financially taken advantage of due to their lack of a steady income. They're not allowed the same opportunities due to their age. They aren't provided the basic medical treatment they require.
I don't have any. I need a doctor. I need a doctor.
They're often forgotten, disregarded, left alone, mocked, treated with unwarranted hostility, and easily targeted for abuse. It's grim stuff, a dose of real horror mixed into a fantasy world where anything can happen, and all the vignettes are cleverly told through the amusement park's attractions. For instance, the bumper car ride results in a crash treated seriously that leads to an elderly couple being blamed for the accident simply because of their age.
Everybody over 65 should be made to ride the bus.
These situations put you in the shoes of these people. Only Lincoln Mazel was an actor. Everybody else in the movie, especially the old people, were volunteers who likely have experienced many of the things depicted in this movie, which makes the film even more realistic and heartbreaking. There is no tangible central villain in the theme park, but a Grim Reaper is often seen, signifying the constant fear the elderly have of death taking them someday soon, at any moment. The villain of the theme park really, though, is, well, the theme park itself. And, not to sound too much like the Joker, the theme park is society itself, somewhere where the young are able to more easily enjoy themselves, but where the older among our numbers are often overwhelmed. None of the younger characters in the film are depicted positively. Not even the church is depicted positively, which probably didn't help this movie's case to get released, seeing as it was funded by a church. The mistreatment of the elderly is a vicious cycle doomed to repeat itself until social change can happen. Like nearly every Romero film, the amusement park has important messages at its heart. The film's bleak proceedings are ultimately a call to action, depicting the worst-case scenarios in the hopes that the film will reach people like you, who will volunteer to help our senior citizens. Not people like me, of course, because I got important shit to do.
There are a number of programs already established which enable concerned persons to offer volunteer services to the elderly.
All in all, The Amusement Park is a visually haunting film and a very powerful PSA. Its messages are vividly illustrated and the performances are heartbreakingly realized. Still, even though this is a really good film, it's not going to be for everyone, and I recommend you watch George Romero's other work like Martin, Dawn of the Dead, and Creepshow before seeing The Amusement Park for a better context. This film is more for hardcore Romero fans who want one last great thrill ride with a master of horror. I give The Amusement Park a Colonel Sanders out of Jump Cut Bikers. I obviously won't be doing a Universal Horror Month this year because I'm too busy with other stuff to give it the time it needs. Super sorry about that, but I'm going to be continuing to review the Hatchet series here on the main channel this summer, along with throwing a Creature from the Black Lagoon review into the mix to make up for the lack of the Universal Horror Month. Meanwhile, on our secondary channel, The Gulag, Goulash will be reviewing the Addams Family film series, so get subscribed to The Gulag today. Link in the description. If you liked this video, like it, and if you loved it, click the subscribe and bell buttons for more vids. I'd also like to thank these fine folks pledged my shout-out tier on Patreon for all their kind support. Videos like this wouldn't be possible without all their help. Thank you for watching, see you next time. Dr. Wolfula signing out.